Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're stepping right into the highly secretive, honestly almost cinematic world of the Central Intelligence Agency during the Cold War. I want you to picture a dark 1950s archive. Shelves completely lined with classified folders, heavily redacted documents, and just this thick, heavy air of global stakes. Well, we are opening those files today to explore the operations that literally reshaped the world, all entirely behind closed doors.
So what actually happens in the shadows of a superpower conflict? How exactly is a war fought without armies? When we think of the Cold War, we usually picture massive standing armies just staring each other down across borders. But the truth? The truth is this conflict was primarily fought through information, deception, and deeply hidden intelligence networks. The real battlefields? They were the shadows. Okay, let's dive into this. Conventional warfare is loud, right? It's troops, tanks, public declarations of force. But covert warfare? Man, that is an entirely different beast. It relies completely on intelligence, deception, proxy forces, and secret networks. It's really about the hidden informational tactics buried in those dark archives we just talked about, rather than the highly visible machinery of a traditional military clash.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, secret intelligence. Second, early Cold War covert action. Third, surveillance, spycraft, and subversion. Fourth, global escalation and resistance. Fifth, the Iran-Contra affair. And finally, number 6, secrets in the digital age. It's basically a chronological journey straight from the analog shadows to the digital frontier.
Section 1. The world of secret intelligence.
Now, at its absolute core, a covert action is an operation designed to influence foreign governments, events, or organizations in support of policy, but doing it all while keeping the sponsor's identity completely concealed. Grasping this invisible mechanism is absolutely essential for understanding how the modern geopolitical chessboard was actually played and quietly shaped over the decades.
Moving on to Section 2, early Cold War covert action.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the early 1950s became a pivotal era for really testing out this new playbook. Just to give you an idea, in 1953, Operation Ajax orchestrated a major political intervention in Iran amid some really tense public gatherings and diplomatic maneuvering. Then, literally just a year later in 1954, Operation PBSUCCESS led to the overthrow of President Jacobo Arbenz in Guatemala. The crazy thing is, these massive global shifts weren't achieved by invading armies. They were pulled off by utilizing strategic communications, radio broadcasts, and quiet backroom maneuvering to fundamentally manipulate the geopolitical landscape.
Okay, Section 3, surveillance, spycraft, and subversion.
We are talking about the actual physical tradecraft on the ground here. Things like microfilm, dead drops, hidden cameras, coded communications, listening devices, cleverly concealed compartments, and secret safe houses. I know, it sounds exactly like a Hollywood script, but these were the very real physical tools used in clandestine meetings and shadowy corners across the globe just to secure an edge in the Cold War.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer vertical scale of the intelligence gathered during this time. On one hand, you had the U-2 spy plane program capturing high-altitude aerial reconnaissance from basically the edge of space, which completely revolutionized surveillance. But then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you had Operation Gold. This was an operation where agents were literally tapping underground telephone wires deep beneath the concrete barriers of a divided Berlin. So from the stratosphere all the way down to the dirt below the streets, they were always watching.
Section 4. Global escalation and resistance. As we moved into the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the theater of covert warfare expanded massively. It really became this complex global web. For example, in Cuba, Washington plotted Operation Mongoose, which was a covert campaign against Fidel Castro's government. Meanwhile, in Southeast Asia, during the Vietnam era, the focus shifted heavily to field communications and tracking military movements through dense jungle landscapes. And then, jumping over to Afghanistan with Operation Cyclone, the CIA supplied and supported Afghan resistance groups during the Soviet-Afghan War. So you can see how the agency's network became a vast, incredibly interconnected mechanism deeply embedded in the overarching superpower struggle.
Which brings us to Section 5, the Iran-Contra affair. So the crucial point is that the 1980s brought a really critical historical moment when these shadows actually spilled right into public view. Mechanically, it began with secret arms sales.
Then, the proceeds from those sales were secretly diverted to provide funding for the Nicaraguan Contras. Ultimately, when this highly complex web unraveled, it led directly to very public, very controversial congressional hearings. It honestly served as a stark, institutional reminder of the deep consequences that happen when the invisible war is dragged out into the light.
And finally, Section 6, Secrets in the Digital Age. Let's move to and see how this builds as the late 20th century closed out, because the traditional tools of espionage underwent a massive technological paradigm shift. For decades, the analog era reigned supreme, right? We're talking paper files, heavy typewriters, ringing telephones, and physical dead drops. But the 80s and 90s ushered in the digital age. We see an inevitable, rapid, historical evolution from a physical world of parchment and shadow straight into the emerging, complex frontier of digital intelligence networks.
As we mentally close those heavy redacted files today and turn off the lamps in that dusty 1950s archive, I want you to remember this quote. Secret operations may remain hidden for years, but their political consequences can last for generations. That is absolutely the enduring legacy of everything we've explored today. These actions, whether they were taken in a damp underground tunnel, a high-altitude plane, or a modern digital network, sent massive ripples across the geopolitical map, ripples that we are literally still feeling right now.
And that brings us to one final, pretty provocative question. As we move further away from paper trails and deeper into this hyper-connected digital future of ours, what new secrets are being written into the history of tomorrow? The methods, they may have changed, but the shadows remain. I really hope this explainer has left you fascinated and eager to learn more about the continuous, hidden evolution of global geopolitics.
Follow Historon1 for more history and facts.